guys, Kate Campbell here. Today we are going to be we're prepping for book club tonight, and the theme is bite-sized Friendsgiving. So I know everybody loves a good Friendsgiving, and I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed by doing like giant plates of food twice, so I decided to make it bite-sized this year. So everybody's going to be bringing something sweet or savory that's small. And so what I'm doing are cups of butternut squash soup with homemade croutons that'll have butter and garlic and Parmesan. And we're gonna make these mini green bean casserole cups with real green beans, real cream, real mushrooms, real onions and shallots. And we're gonna bake them in some cute little pie crust tartlets. And so they'll be like a bite-sized, yummy green bean casserole bite. And the last thing we're gonna do is a cocktail. We're gonna shake it up with our little tart. I'm calling it a tart turkey. It'll be a vodka-based cocktail with some sour cranberries and pomegranate going on in there. We'll serve it over ice, and it's gonna be great. So stay tuned. Okay guys, so I'm in the process of finishing up cutting this butternut squash. So I've gone the more laborious route here because we have such amazing produce in the San Ynez Valley. I always try to hit up Finley Farms, shout out to my favorite farm stand here, before I go to the grocery store for anything. And when I wanted to make butternut squash soup, I went there and I got super lucky that they have all these beautiful butternut squashes. So I did buy them whole, peeled them, seeded them, and here I am chopping them up here. And what I'm gonna do is put them on this baking sheet with just some olive oil and some salt, and I'm gonna roast it at 400 degrees until they're soft, which is usually about 15 to 20 minutes. And the roasting does two things. One is it really brings out the best flavor in the squash, and two, it softens it and gets it ready so you're not gonna steam it in the pot when we're gonna be pureeing it and making our butternut squash bisque. Because this winter time, I'm going a little bit heartier on this soup, so I'm gonna actually be also incorporating some Yukon Gold potatoes, which I will actually boil in some chicken broth in our soup pot. So while our butternut squash is going, we'll get going with that. And once we'll pull it out, it'll all come together and be delicious. Okay guys, I've got my Global Gardens olive oil here. I'm gonna give this butternut squash a nice, generous drizzle. I'm gonna drizzle that over. Go. And I'm using a high quality olive oil here because I want the flavors to be really bold and strong for our soup. And I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of salt. This is just kosher salt. Got a generous little sprinkle there. Some freshly ground pepper. I'm gonna pop this into a 400-degree oven. The cook time is gonna vary based on the size of your cut. So if you're trying to save time, you can actually buy butternut squash pre-cut, which is great, and you just pop that in. This I peeled, cut and seeded. It's a little bit bigger, so I'm thinking it'll take more like 20 minutes, but we're gonna check it at 15, all right? Sticking it in here. Okay guys, so here I've got my coarsely sliced yellow onions and a stick of butter that's continuing to melt in our soup pot. So I'm gonna saute these up until they're soft. I'm not gonna overly caramelize them because we're gonna bring this whole mixture to a boil, so I don't want the onions to fully disintegrate. So right now I'm just waiting for this butter to melt. I'm gonna saute up these onions until they're minorly caramelized, and then we're gonna add in our Yukon Gold potato and our chicken broth and bring that to a boil. And then we'll add our squash and seasoning and puree it up. Now our onion, garlic, and sage is really starting to come together. The onions are soft. I'm gonna go ahead and add my Yukon Gold potatoes. And I'm gonna actually saute them up just a little bit so they get a little bit of this butter flavor before we add liquid and boil them. I'm gonna boil the potatoes to soften them, and then I'm gonna add my squash back since we pre-roasted it. So I don't want it to get too overcooked to where it just turns into mush and you lose that bright flavor in the butternut squash. So we're gonna go ahead and let these caramelize up for a minute, and then we're gonna add the broth. Okay, we're gonna make our homemade croutons. So these are buttery, cheesy, herby. They are amazing. And word to the wise, you should always double your crouton batch, because as you're making them, you will eat them, half of them yourself, or anybody in your house will pass by and grab one of these once they're done. So word to the wise, double your crouton recipe. So I have 2 French breads cut up from the grocery store. Any kind of French bread you like. One I've combined here. So one is a rosemary olive oil. The other one's like a cheesy bread. So I've cut them up into crouton sized cubes here. And keep in mind, these are gonna cook down a little bit, but you want them to be bite size. So what I'm gonna do here is I've got a stick of butter that's melted. I'm gonna drizzle that evenly all over the pan here. And I'm gonna do also a generous drizzling of olive oil. Keep in mind, all this bread is gonna soak up here, all these flavors. So I'm gonna start with that. I've got some garlic here, so I'm gonna just take probably about a 1/4 of a cup. You don't want it to be a full garlic bomb. You just definitely want a little bit of that flavor. So drizzle that across. And then I've got some fresh herbs here. So I really wanna highlight the sage. So I've got some finely chopped sage, some thyme, and I'm gonna do a handful of chives. Look at how herby and beautiful that is. And then I'm gonna put my Parmesan. So this is just grated Parmesan. It's a little bit heartier because I really do like my croutons to be a little bit cheesy, and we're doing this butternut squash bisque. So this is gonna be our topping. Without having to dip bread, you're gonna have these flavor bombs of bready, crispy, cheesy, herby croutons that are just awesome. It's kind of like an open-faced stuffing, if you will. You're gonna have this little dollop on top of your beautiful butternut squash soup. And I'm gonna be serving them in little mugs, so it's not gonna be too much of a commitment. Like I said, bite-sized Thanksgiving. So this would be kind of like our equivalent to our starter, butternut squash bisque, with this kind of deconstructed stuffing on top. So I've mixed that together. Here, I think I need a little bit more olive oil around here. And then I'm gonna do a little bit of garlic salt. This is my secret weapon for everything. You can ask everyone in my family. I'm obsessed with garlic salt. Okay. Garlic salt that. Give it one last toss. I'm gonna pop these also into a 400-degree oven. And we've doubled our batch here, so this will probably take about half an hour. And I'll just kind of set a timer for 20 minutes and check it. And you want to rotate the croutons as well. So I'll set a timer for 20, and then I'll probably stir them and do maybe another 10 or 20. So our croutons have been in now for about 15 minutes. See how golden and pretty they are. And see kind of what I mean about this deconstructed stuffing vibe. Right, keep in mind we're going for a Thanksgiving theme here. So I'm just gonna move these over, kind of get the underside in some of our butter, olive oil situation here. And then I'm gonna bake these probably just for about another 6 minutes. I want them to be crispy, but not overly crisp. So here we've got that. Pop these back in. I'm gonna set our timer for 6 minutes. Okay, y'all. Our croutons are crispy and they are done. So they're cooling, they are real hot. I'm gonna sneak a taste once they get to not be, let's see. Oh my God, they're so good. They're crispy, herby, cheesy, not overkill, right? It's not like gonna be a cheese ball, but we're gonna put these on top of our bisque, which I'm gonna go check on to see if we've got some boil going. I'm gonna take a sip of this for the road. Oh, here we go. It's boiling. All right, let me stir this. So. Okay guys, we are gonna do our little crusties for our green bean casserole bites. So I'm cheating, and this is the best hack ever. P.S. If you're making a pie, Pillsbury's pre-done pie crust is amazing. My mom's been using it my entire life. So I've got these cute little mini muffin tins, and I have this dough here. So these come in a 2-pack, obviously, for a top and a bottom pie. So what we're gonna do is And you could roll this out with some flour, but I'm just gonna go easy on myself because I have people coming over here soon and I want to be as efficient as possible. So this is chilled, it's been in the fridge. You can freeze this, by the way, if you end up buying it and don't use it, you can freeze it and it'll keep for a while. But this is refrigerated, it's chilled, it's firm. I've got my trusty biscuit cutter here. So this is just a small standard biscuit size. So I'm just gonna make little cuts along this circle and try to be as efficient as possible so you get as many cuts as you can. Do them super close together and we'll maximize our crust here because I do have a backup pack in the fridge, but I'm thinking that we're only gonna need the one per batch. So we are making our filling. So what I'm gonna do is start with this pancetta. This is a little 2-packer of some, just you can buy this at the grocery store, pancetta, and it's got pepper and not like a nice amount of fat. So I'm gonna let that kind of get hot. I'm gonna add our shallots here and the mushrooms. I'll probably add the mushrooms first because mushrooms are like a natural sponge. So they're gonna soak up all that yummy fat flavor from the mushrooms, the pancetta. So I'll probably add those second, then our shaved shallots, garlic, we'll add our green beans, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of cream, and we're gonna make this sort of real green bean casserole vibe with our bites. And maybe a little butter, because life is better with butter. So we're gonna let that continue to cook. You also have to be careful with the pancetta because if you over saute it, it'll become too crispy and then it'll almost disintegrate. So I'm kind of adding everything layer by layer. Just every sauce, every soup, everything is kind of its own layer. Make sure you treat every layer the same and season it. We added our green beans. That's our last thing to add before the cream. So the onions are softened. We've got our pancetta nice and cooked up. We've got our shallots and our garlic. So now we're gonna cook down these beans and you'll be surprised by how much they'll cook down, and then we'll add our cream.
And to cover them.
Okay guys, now I've got my little par-baked pie crust babies here. So I'm just gonna take a spoonful of my filling here. Put that inside each one of these. And keep in mind, like, see, this is gonna go a long way. These are crispy onions, like just the French's, like your traditional green bean casserole crispy onion crunch. And I'm just gonna bake these for like 3 minutes just to get them set. And this is like your green bean casserole dream, but it's with real food and not canned weird stuff.
Alabama, Arkansas, I do love my mountain paw, not the way that I do love you.
Well, holy moly, me oh my, you're the apple of my eye. Girl, I never loved one like you.
Oh man,